I think for us, absolutely the thing that digital in-store is not is simply a replacement for printed graphics, right? So what it needs to do is actually bring a whole other level to the experience that's actually going to augment the process about why the consumer's in the retail environment in the first place. So the way you're going to engage with digital and a brand when maybe you're at home with your iPad is going to be a completely different thing than what he or she is looking for when they're actually in the store and they've decided to engage in a physical experience. So you can't just overlay the one onto the other. You've got to think about where the consumer is and what they're out to really seek and understand at that point, and then aid in that versus add another layer of noise on top of it. Otherwise, they just tune it out. I think consistency and sort of a connective tissue, I think, is the important thing, but it doesn't have to be consistent in the sake that it's exactly the same everywhere you are. It's a spectrum of touch points, and it's just another layer. So it definitely wants to relate, and people are engaging with the brand all throughout the day in your store, outside of your store. So it's really sort of tuning that like a mixing board and figuring out how it goes, but it has a kind of DNA that runs through it, but it doesn't need to be exactly the same. It can be challenging. What I'd say is that, the fortunate thing that we have going for us is that the brand's always had this sort of restless, disruptive kind of spirit. So I think it's important to strike the high regard for what your DNA has been about in the first place and those propositions about your brand that have always resonated, but not to view them as, fossils that you can't change, right? So you have to build on them, mutate them, change them over time, augment them, and build new codes about your brand. And as long as you're keeping vital like that, and you don't forget who you are, but you don't get mired, with your ankles in concrete about it, that's the way to strike that balance and move forward and stay who you are.